Stay tuned. Ahead, I'll talk with Annie Fitzsimmons about 100 Hotels of a Lifetime, the world's ultimate retreats. Hi, I'm Dan Skinner, and this is Some Books Considered. Annie Fitzsimmons has covered hotels, travel, lifestyle, restaurants, and destinations around the world for the last 2 decades. She's hosted more than 40 trips across Europe for small and large groups, planned itineraries for private clients, and created hundreds of travel guides, and that's just a partial list of her many credits. She joins us to talk about 100 Hotels of a Lifetime, the world's ultimate retreats. Annie, welcome to Some Books Considered.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here with you.
Well, before we dig into this book, give us a brief overview. What are readers going to find here?
So I have always been obsessed with hotels, and I find a lot of people are as well. But I grew up one of 5 kids. We didn't have a ton of money. I mean, I would sleep in bathtubs sometimes in hotels. But for me, a hotel really is this like portal into this magical world that is not of your ordinary life. And I feel like that's kind of how I pick them. There's actually about 130, 140 maybe hotels in the book. But I've spent 20 years traveling the world, and I've been working on this book for 3 years. So it was really, every hotel in there is there for a reason. And I feel like the 2 things that really kind of went through the thread of the whole book is, one, the hotel had to feel of the place, of the destination. There are a lot of hotels that kind of look the same everywhere. And then the other thing is, this is not true for all the hotels in the book, but the other thing is that ideally they let outsiders in. So I always say, if you can't afford to sleep in the hotel, take it on a date. And I tried to make that happen for most of the hotels that I picked.
So tell us more about the criteria. You mentioned a few things, but how did you winnow this down to 100 plus hotels to feature?
So I had to have geographical diversity. So they could have all been in Italy as far as I was concerned, or France. So I had to look at it globally. I wanted, about 40% in Europe, 30% in the US. That's not right. Anyways, they had to have a certain amount of, hotels for each part of the world, first of all. And then they couldn't all be 4 seasons, although I do love 4 seasons. So I had to look at that first of all. And then I actually interviewed more than 100 people. I interviewed travel advisors. I interviewed travel experts. And then, of course, it was me. In the end, it was really me picking which ones I really connected to, the people I love. The cover of the book that I can see right now on the video is the Grand Hotel Tremezzo. The owner, Valentina DeSantis, is one of the most magical human beings on the planet. So it was really about the people. And then experiences that you can't get anywhere else. There's this hotel in India, the Oberoi, where all 102 rooms look at the Taj Mahal. And I just think that's sort of an architectural feat. This is just this magical place that you wake up and you see the Taj Mahal. So it was kind of, a rambling way of saying that there were some criteria. And then really, though, it was just places that I have just connected to over my career and just love and adore.
So who do you see as the audience for this book? Because most of us are never going to stay in these hotels. Yeah. So is this great for the armchair traveler or just someone who enjoys great architecture and scenery?
Yeah, I mean, I like to talk about my dad. He travels, but he prefers to sit in his recliner and watch TV and travel from his armchair, and he loves it. So I do think of that person. I also think it's for the people who, one of my biggest tips is, when is your birthday?
January 5th.
January 5th, you just had it. Okay. Is on your birthday to go for a fancy hotel breakfast, So yes, it's for people who may not stay in these hotels, but maybe to think about accessing them in a way that they haven't thought about before. Because I feel like if you go for a birthday breakfast at a hotel, the rest of the day might be terrible. Someone might forget your birthday, but you've had that great start to the day. So yeah, armchair travelers, and then also just people who love histories of hotels. Right now I'm at the Raffles Old War Office, which was Winston Churchill's office during World War II. They completely redid it, opened it a couple of years ago, and it's just this incredible sense of place on Whitehall. It's across from 10 Downing Street. So people who love histories of hotels and also who love just sort of traveling the world through pictures and words.
Well, obviously, we can't talk about all the hotels in this book, but you've spotlighted a few, but tell us some more about a few that you think are particularly spectacular.
My wish would be that everyone in their life could go on a safari in Africa. And I feel like people said this to me before, and I was like, I don't really want to. Like, and then when I went, it sort of changed my life, because you're out on these game drives and you're sort of connecting to this landscape that looks the same as it did 10,000 years ago. And there's a few safari brands in the book that I love, like Singita, which they have this 100-year conservation purpose to give back to the African wilderness, or the Royal Portfolio. In Europe, I just stayed at the Carlton Cannes, which is where Grace Kelly was staying when she was filming To Catch a Thief with Cary Grant. It's where she met her husband, the Prince of Monaco. Ashford Castle in Ireland, we can go do falconry, and I could go on, but I would say safari is the one. And there are so many in America, by the way, that are amazing. I mean, I grew up in Scottsdale, Arizona. One of the hotels I love in Arizona is the Hermosa Inn, which is a great one to go and just have a drink on the patio with the twinkly lights looking at Camelback Mountain. So yeah, there's so many.
I'm talking with Annie Fitzsimmons about 100 Hotels of a Lifetime, the world's ultimate retreats, and our conversation continues in a moment. If you're enjoying this discussion, please subscribe, like, and click on the bell so you know when I post new interviews. And thank you. This book, as you mentioned, it's great for the armchair traveler. And I like the idea of, if you can't stay there, maybe just, go there and have dinner or whatever. Well, some hotels actually just allow you to kind of just walk in, look around, and take in the site.
I always say, like, I had no experience when I started, and I would stalk hotels, but I always tried to pretend like I knew what I was doing. So I would walk in and pretend like I knew where I was going. But yeah, I think you have to just dress appropriately and walk in. And yes, most hotels love it when people come in, because they're so proud of their, what they've done. It's really hard work. It's exhausting to work in a hotel, but they create magic in people's lives. So yes, walk in and do it. That's what I do.
I'm curious also about hotels that, you talk about hotels that have a great view. They're in a great country. It fits in terms of the overall ambiance of the location. But are there some hotels that are so magnificent or so unique that it wouldn't matter where they were, you should just go to this hotel and experience it?
Yes, I think one comes to mind, and I'm a little bit biased because my husband is from Switzerland and I have a half Swiss daughter, but it's called the Hotel Eden Rock in Ascona, Switzerland. And the cover of the book is Lake Como, and it's close to Lake Como, but not a lot of people know about Lake Maggiore. And it was designed by this guy named Carlo Rampazzi, and it's sort of like being in his mind when you walk in, and it's just color and just like nothing you've seen in your life, and the most beautiful little town, the most beautiful promenade on the lake. So that's one that comes to mind. Although it does have a sense of place. I think also the hotels in Japan, which are ones that are just so spectacular, also because the Japanese really have this sense of service that's just kind of unlike anywhere else in the world. And the views in Tokyo are just, you can't believe what you're seeing. So those are ones that come to mind.
Yeah, you mentioned you wish everyone could go on safari and experience those hotels. Are there other ones that should be on someone's bucket list? If I could go to just one hotel from this book, what would it be?
Okay, I would say the Belmont Hotel Cipriani in Venice. So a lot of people have been to Venice. A lot of people dream of Venice if they haven't been. This is on Giudecca Island. It's about 7 minutes from St. Mark's. I'm like losing my mind, that main square in Venice. Venice doesn't exist to me without the Cipriani. It's so much a part of the city, and it's always been my favorite hotel. It has an Olympic-sized seawater swimming pool. It's where the Venice Film Festival stars always stay. So you always see these pictures of Beyonce and George Clooney going back and forth. But it's really not about that. It's not so fancy, but it's just kind of like every single thing about it is just so perfect and welcoming.
You mentioned that going to a hotel is a special experience for you.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people who maybe travel or, stay at kind of those cookie cutter hotels, it's not something they look forward to. So it sounds like this is a whole different world of experience that you can point people toward.
It is. And you know what? I mean, it's easy for me, for someone who's been a travel editor and writer for 20 years, to recommend fancy hotels. But the harder thing is recommending, a 3-star family run. There's this hotel in Paris, the Hotel du Danube, where I'm going to stay in a couple weeks again. It's like 200 euros a night. Like these places still exist. And I think I tried to weave that in as well to get away from the cookie cutter. I mean, these hotel companies are growing like crazy, and they'll announce, 300 new hotels all around the world. And you're like, it's just the same, right? It's sort of built the same. So I think there is an element of magic in every hotel that I picked. And it's not always about the price. So I think I just would encourage people to also just sort of look for those gems. I mean, Rick Steves, who I adore, he does a great job of finding these places as well.
Besides being just an entertaining read, what sort of new appreciation do you want people to take of a good quality hotel?
I think I want people to feel like there is still magic in the world. The news is hard, especially LA this week. And I think a hotel is one of those last remaining places on the planet where it does really feel magical because you're out of your life. And I want people to take that with them, that they can sort of access it even in a world that feels crazy and chaotic. It's a cocoon. The great hotels, there's a lot of terrible hotels, but the great hotels feel like these magical portals.
The book is 100 Hotels of a Lifetime, The World's Ultimate Retreats by Annie Fitzsimmons. Annie, thank you for talking with me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
If you'd like to purchase 100 Hotels of a Lifetime, I've placed a link for you in the description below. If you enjoyed this conversation, please subscribe, like, and click on the bell so you know when I post new interviews. Meanwhile, here are 2 more books you might find interesting. I'm Dan Skinner. Thank you for watching this edition of Some Books Considered.